Revenge office stories. Before we dive in, let's be clear. The company and people in this story are fictional, but the feeling behind it? That's all too real. Now, do me a favor and hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It really helps the channel, and you don't want to miss what's coming. Have you ever poured your heart and soul into a job, only to be treated like you're just another cog in the machine? That's where my story starts. It's a story about knowing your worth, even when your boss seems determined to make you forget it. He actually laughed when I handed him my resignation. He told me my loyalty was a given and my value was a joke. What he didn't realize was that my final act at his company wasn't just to quit. It was to orchestrate my exit so perfectly that his empire would start to crumble the second I walked out the door. Let me take you back to how it all started. My name is Kaya, and for 8 years, a company called Innovatech Solutions was my entire world. I wasn't just an employee, I was a true believer. I started as a junior project coordinator, bright-eyed and full of that naive ambition you have in your 20s. The company was smaller then, a scrappy underdog in the tech world, and our CEO, Victor Tmain, was the charismatic visionary leading the charge. The guy could sell sand in the desert, and in those early days, we all bought into his dream. We pulled insane hours, fueled by cheap pizza and the promise that we were building something special. I climbed the ladder, not by playing politics, but by being the one who got things done. If a project was on fire, I was the one running toward the flames. If a client was unhappy, I was the one on the phone all night, smoothing things over. I lived and breathed Innovatech's success. It wasn't just a job, it was my identity. By the time I was 32, my official title was Senior Project Director, which was the corporate understatement of the century. In reality, I was the company's central nervous system. 2 achievements really defined my time there. The first was landing the Evergreen account. They were a white whale, a massive client everyone wanted. While our sales team was doing flashy presentations, I spent 6 months just building a real relationship with their mid-level managers. I learned their pain points, their bottlenecks, their goals. I didn't just sell them a product. I designed a custom solution from the ground up. I presented it myself, not as a sales pitch, but as a partnership. We signed them the next week, and that one account grew to almost 40% of our annual revenue. To celebrate, Victor took the executive team to Hawaii. I got a great job, Kaya, in the hallway. My second, and even more critical, contribution was a system we called Project Phoenix. Our old workflows were a disaster of spreadsheets and outdated software. We were hemorrhaging money. So on my own time, over 6 months of late nights and weekends, I designed and built a new, proprietary project management system from scratch. Project Phoenix was my baby. It streamlined everything, from client intake to final billing. In its first year, it saved the company an estimated $2 million in operational costs and cut down project completion times by about 30%. Victor loved showing off Project Phoenix to investors. He'd click through the dashboards I designed and talk about the culture of innovation he fostered. He'd call it his system. He was a master of using we when things went wrong and I when they went right. While he was collecting awards, I was the one on late-night calls with our European office, walking them through a server migration I'd personally set up. I was the ghost in the machine, the invisible architect of his biggest wins. And Victor, he was a character straight out of a movie about toxic bosses. Publicly, he was charming, well-dressed, and gave inspiring speeches about teamwork. In private, he was a petty tyrant. He saw employees not as assets, but as resources to be squeezed dry. He never gave praise, believing our paychecks were thanks enough. He'd steal your ideas in meetings so smoothly you'd almost wonder if you ever had them. Over the years, the scrappy startup I loved turned into a cold corporation. The fun was gone, replaced by fear. Yet I stayed. I stayed for my team. I stayed for the clients who trusted me. And honestly, I stayed because I had poured so much of myself into the company that leaving felt like giving up a piece of me. My loyalty, I would soon find out, wasn't seen as a virtue. It was a vulnerability he was about to exploit. The day everything changed started like any other Tuesday. I had my annual performance review with Victor at 3 p.m. For the first time ever, I was going to ask for what I was actually worth. Not just a tiny raise, but a real salary increase and a title change to Vice President of Operations. It wasn't about ego. It was just a reflection of reality. I was already doing the job of a VP, managing a team of 12 and overseeing our most critical accounts and systems. I spent weeks getting ready. I didn't just walk in with a good feeling. I walked in with a 20-page dossier. It was packed with data, a year-over-year analysis of the evergreen account's growth, charts showing the millions saved by Project Phoenix, and even salary data for similar roles at competitor companies. My ask for a raise to $180,000, and the VP title wasn't just justified, it was a bargain. I was armed with logic and proof. I thought data was a language even Victor would have to understand. I walked into his glass-walled office. He was leaning back in his ridiculously expensive chair, scrolling through his phone. He gestured for me to sit without even looking up. "Kaya," he said, eyes still on the screen. "Make it quick. I've got a board call in 20. The first part of the meeting was fine. I presented my highlights. He nodded along, barely paying attention. I pressed on, and when I detailed the latest profit margins from the Evergreen account, I thought I saw a flicker of actual interest. Then the moment of truth. "Victor," I started, my voice steady. "Based on my contributions, I've prepared a proposal for a new role and compensation." I slid the summary page across his desk. It had the new title and the salary number in bold font. He picked it up, glanced at it for half a second, and then he laughed. It wasn't a chuckle. It was a loud, ugly, mocking laugh that echoed in the silent office. Humiliation washed over me, hot and sharp. My professionalism, my years of dedication, my data, it all just vanished in the sound of his laughter. He finally caught his breath, wiping a tear from his eye. He looked right at me and said, "A VP? Kaya, you're a great manager, but you're not executive material. And this number..." He flicked the paper. "This is fantasy land." I opened my mouth to argue, but he cut me off, leaning forward. "Let me give you some advice," he said, his voice now low and condescending. "You have a good, stable job here. You're comfortable, but you're 32. It's a tough market out there, especially for a woman your age trying to climb the ladder in tech. You should be grateful for what you have." Then he delivered the final blow. "Consider your loyalty part of your compensation package, Kaya. It's your most valuable asset. Don't get greedy." Shock, white-hot rage, betrayal. Every late night, every missed family event, it all flashed before my eyes. He didn't just say no. He belittled my age, my gender, my loyalty, and my entire career in under a minute. He saw my dedication not as a strength, but as a chain to keep me right where I was, underpaid and obedient. I have no idea how I held it together. I just nodded slowly, my face a perfect mask. I gathered my papers from his desk. "Thank you for your time, Victor," I said, my voice betraying nothing. As I walked back to my desk, his laughter was still ringing in my ears. But beneath the humiliation, a cold, hard resolve was starting to form. He thought my loyalty was a given. He thought my value was a joke. He hadn't just denied a raise. He had created a monster. He just didn't know it yet. That night, the dam broke. The humiliation turned into pure, unfiltered rage. I thought of the vacations I'd cut short, the times I defended Victor to my friends, insisting he was just under pressure. It was all a lie I had told myself. I didn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table, and the rage slowly cooled into something far more dangerous. A plan. He said my loyalty was part of my compensation. Fine. It was time to liquidate that asset. This wasn't going to be a simple resignation. This was going to be a controlled demolition. Phase 1 was Operation Escape Pod. The very next day, I secretly started my job search. I updated my resume with the hard data Victor had laughed at. Increased key account revenue by 200% over 4 years. Design system resulting in $2 million annual cost savings. My resume was a killer. The response was immediate. It turns out a 32-year-old woman with my track record was a very hot commodity. Within 3 weeks, I had 3 job offers. One was from a direct competitor, offering me the title of VP of Global Operations and a salary of $220,000. I accepted, but I negotiated a start date 5 weeks out. I needed time. That led to Phase 2, Operation Black Box. For the next month, I became the most diligent employee you've ever seen. I documented everything, or so it seemed. The official guides I saved on the company server were technically accurate, but intentionally useless. They were full of high-level jargon, but had none of the context needed to actually run anything. For Project Phoenix, the guide listed the main functions, but conveniently left out the complex steps needed for monthly reports or the manual workarounds for common errors. The real documentation, my black box, was a step-by-step Bible of my entire job. It lived on an encrypted hard drive that never touched the company network. It had everything. Notes on my relationship with Mark at Evergreen, including his kids' birthdays, the direct cell numbers for critical vendors, the emergency protocols for a Project Phoenix server failure. This was my masterpiece of malicious compliance. Phase 3 was the most delicate, planting the seeds. This was about subtly retying the company's key assets to me, personally. First, the Evergreen account. On my next weekly call with Mark, I casually said, "Hey, on a personal note, I've been thinking a lot about my career lately." He immediately picked up on it. "Everything okay over there?" he asked. "Everything's fine," I lied smoothly, just thinking out loud. "Working with you has been the highlight of my career. That partnership means a lot to me." I wasn't poaching. I was just making him realize the partnership he valued was with me, not Innovatech. Next, I turned to my right-hand man, Liam, a brilliant and underpaid project manager. In a one-on-one, I told him, "Start meticulously tracking your wins, Liam. Quantify your impact. No one else is going to do it for you." I helped him polish his resume and introduced him to a recruiter. I wasn't telling him to quit. I was giving him a parachute. Finally, I weaponized Project Phoenix. When people asked for deep dive training on the system, I politely deflected, blaming the end-of-quarter workload Victor himself had approved. "I'd love to," I'd say with fake regret, "but Victor needs these numbers by Friday, maybe next month." I knew there would be no next month. Any sane company would have redundancy plans, but Innovatech wasn't a sane company. It was Victor's kingdom, and he never imagined his most loyal subject would revolt. By the end of the 5th week, everything was in place. All that was left was the final act. I chose a Thursday. It was the day before a major deliverable was due for the Evergreen account. A deliverable I knew they couldn't complete without a specific report only I knew how to run. The timing was designed for maximum impact. I walked into the office feeling like I was wearing armor. I spent the morning acting completely normal. At 2:45 p.m., I sent a meeting invite to Victor for 3 p.m. Quick follow-up. I also printed out a decoy resignation letter giving 2 weeks' notice. It was a prop for the little show I was about to put on. I walked into his office at 3 p.m. sharp. "What is it, Kaya?" "I'm busy," he snapped. Without a word, I placed the decoy letter face down on his desk. He picked it up. As he started reading, I pulled out my phone. I had the real email, the one stating my resignation was effective immediately, queued up and ready to go. While the smirk started to form on his face, I hit send. He finished the letter and let out that same horrible laugh. 2 weeks' notice, he scoffed, tossing the letter on his desk. "Honestly, I'm surprised you think you're worth 2 weeks. Don't let the door hit you on the way out." I just stood there waiting. 1 second. 2. 3. BZZZT. His phone vibrated on the desk. He glanced down at the screen. The preview was unmistakable. From Kaya Nordstrom. Subject, resignation. Effective immediately. The smirk on his face didn't just fade, it collapsed. You could see the panic rising as his brain struggled to connect the two realities. What is this? He stammered, pointing a shaky finger at his phone. I finally let myself have a small, cold smile. That, I said, is the official notification. The letter was a courtesy, a prop. I wanted to see you laugh one last time. The color drained from his face. Effective immediately? You can't do that. It's policy to give notice. Actually, in our state, it's a professional courtesy, not a legal requirement, I replied calmly. A courtesy you haven't earned. The reality of the chaos I had just unleashed was hitting him. But the evergreen deliverable, he stuttered. The quarterly reports. All my files are on the server as per protocol, I said smoothly. I'm sure a man of your talents can figure it out. His eyes were wide with terror. He had believed I was a replaceable cog, and in one move, I had revealed that I was the machine. Kaya, wait, he said, his voice desperate. Let's talk. We can revisit your proposal. He wasn't seeing a subordinate anymore. He was seeing the architect of his doom. I turned and walked to the door, pausing to look back at him, looking so small in his glass palace. You said my value was a joke, Victor, I said quietly. Let's see who's laughing now. And with that, I walked out, straight to the elevator, and never looked back. The show was over. The consequences were just beginning. The moment I stepped out of that building, I felt this incredible sense of release. I blocked Victor's number before I even got to my car. By the time I was home, I had 17 missed calls from him. I ignored them all. My part was done. Now I was just in the audience. The fallout was faster than I ever could have imagined. First, the Evergreen account. The next morning, Mark called my personal cell. Kaya, what is going on? He asked. I just got off a disastrous call with Victor. He couldn't answer a single basic question. Our confidence in Innovatech was really our confidence in you. I'm putting our contract under formal review. The wound was fatal. Internally, it was pure chaos. Liam called me that weekend and described a scene of absolute panic. Victor had them working all weekend trying to figure out Project Phoenix, and without my black box guide, they were lost. They triggered an error that corrupted a month's worth of data, delaying billing for multiple major clients. The money I saved the company with that system, they were on track to lose that much in a single quarter. The toxic, high-stress environment was the final straw. It's funny how that works. When one person who knows what they're doing leaves a sinking ship, a lot of other people suddenly realize they're standing in water. 1 week after I left, Liam handed in his resignation to come work with me. His exit started an exodus. 2 of the best engineers I had mentored quit within the next 2 weeks. Morale hit rock bottom. Victor tried to stop the bleeding by hiring expensive consultants to reverse engineer my work. But Project Phoenix was too specific, a map written in a language only I spoke. They quoted him a 6-month timeline just to understand the system. The company, once a rising star, was now in a nosedive. Key clients were leaving, and the best employees were jumping ship. The empire Victor built on the backs of people like me was crumbling, just as I planned. About 4 months later, I was having lunch with Liam at our new company. I was thriving, respected, valued, and finally compensated for my work. During lunch, Liam slid his phone across the table. It was a tech news article. The headline read, Innovatech Solutions announces major restructuring following client exodus. CEO Victor Tmain to step down. I read it with a weird sense of detachment. The article detailed how the loss of the Evergreen account had caused a cascade of failures. Victor was out. I clicked on his LinkedIn profile. His headline, once a boastful, visionary CEO and industry disruptor, now just said, seeking new opportunities. Seeing his downfall didn't bring me a rush of pleasure. It was a quiet, profound sense of justice. He wasn't beaten by a competitor. He was beaten by his own arrogance. He mistook an employee's loyalty for a leash, and when she finally broke it, he found out she was the one holding the whole thing up. In the end, this wasn't really about revenge. It was about reclamation. It's about taking back your own story when someone tries to steal it. It's about understanding that your loyalty, your time, and your talent are your most valuable assets. They should be invested where they're respected, not given away to people who feel entitled to them. The biggest lesson I learned is this. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even, it's getting ahead. It's moving on and building a better future for yourself, proving your own value through your own success. And trust me, there is no sweeter victory than that. That's my story. It was a wild ride, but I wouldn't change a thing. Now I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me about a time someone underestimated you. How did you handle it? And if you found this story satisfying, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs to be reminded of their own worth. Thanks for watching.